In case you've never heard this, part of Baton Rouge broke away. Now, you're going to break this story down over the next 20 minutes. You're going to hear racist a whole lot of times, but I'm fixing to prove to you how this is not racist. I'm going to talk to you about how you could actually do this in your community. I'm going to tell you why it's okay for you to do this in your community. And I'm fixing to show you how reverse racism or racism against white people, we're getting fed up with it. So my name is Samantha, and it's time for you and I to have a real conversation.
Baton Rouge. Can you explain how this new segregated city, does this just siphon off resources from a Black city while still keeping white overseers in place in Baton Rouge, or will this actually empower more Black residents?
You guys know that YouTube demonetized us. In other words, you're going to have to look at commercials that we don't get paid for. Folks, we really need you to row in our boat with us. If all of you would just send $1 or $10, whatever you feel led by the Lord to send, it would greatly help us, folks, because they stopped paying us a month and a half ago, and so far we've lost around $8,000, and that is a hard hit for a debt-free farmstead. So anything you could send would be so appreciative. Look in the top of comments. You have to actually open the comment, and there's several different ways that you can row in our boat. The village of St. George became the city of St. George in 2024, and the headlines were horrific. Rich white people segregate from East Baton Rouge. The people controlling the city council in East Baton Rouge, the school board, every politician possible screamed racism.
This was a very organized effort by a handful of people with a lot of money to achieve the creation of their own city. Walk folks through how this happened.
So, Roland, we have a man named Norman Browning who organizes a group of about 10 people that decide they want a new school district because they don't want their kids to go to the schools of Baton Rouge.
So right off the top, we get into the conspiracy theorized.
They flat said, this is a white group of people segregating from Black people. How could we let this happen in 2024?
And the Supreme Court just ruled, I think it was 4-3, fact check me, for them to be able to separate from the majority Black Baton Rouge and form their own town, city, whatever it may be. I know that the mayor of Baton Rouge does not love this idea, as it just siphons more money out of the city, more tax dollars and things like that.
The funny thing is that facts speak louder than nonsense. Look at this. Like 40%, 46% white, 36% Black. Even got some Hispanic people in there. What? Wow. That sure looks like segregation to me, folks. Come on. This is why I laugh at people when they say that I'm racist when I want to discuss facts, because you think you can shut me up by throwing around fascism or racism or some homophobic of something, some fear of some group, when in fact, everything I'm discussing is coming from a place of love, because the only way we're going to fix our country is to be truthful.
And so when you look at the conversation around people wanting a new school district, these are people who ultimately don't want their kids to go to school with Black kids. Currently, the school district in Baton Rouge is 80% Black, even though the city is 56% Black. So white parents in Baton Rouge right now, for the most part, do not send their kids to public schools in Baton Rouge. As a result of not getting that school district, these folks then decided to try to start a city.
So it is true that it was spearheaded by a veteran, a white veteran.
Baton Rouge school, plagued by racial tensions and violence, drove military veteran to spearhead successful campaign for wealthy white residents to form new city of St. George. The first thing I'd like to do is insult the person who wrote that headline, because it's overly verbose and doesn't really explain what the story is. The story's massive. Baton Rouge is effectively splitting into two cities over crime, with the wealthier suburb, which is predominantly white, St. George, becoming its own city. And this was as of a couple days ago. The interesting thing is that there are many people arguing that by having this wealthy suburb break off, which is predominantly white, 70%, it is going to harm and leave behind black families. I am shocked that they would argue that make that racist argument. Black families in Baton Rouge don't need the white people to be there in order to succeed. I don't know why they would make that argument. But of course, they're claiming it's racist now that the people who live in this community voted for their own city. So what say you, panel?
Now, anybody that makes more than $26,000 a year in Louisiana, you considered rich, baby. Can I get an amen? Everybody's like, yo, you rich, you know? Because this is a poverty-stricken state. The funny thing to me is that people want to say it's simply because they don't like black people. But the truth of it is, we don't like our kids to be killed in school. We don't want our children beat up solely because they're white. We want our kids to be educated. Now, I know that's the truth for 90% of people. But the problem in EBR is that the school is horrific. The schools are old. The money is mismanaged. They can't keep a superintendent to save their life.
East Baton Rouge School District, they only have one, well, you could say Zachary, which is kind of like their own community. It's really where it needs to be. Do they have races and things that goes on there? Yes. But when it comes to the education and how it's broke down, why didn't I find their leadership? Why is it that St. Charles Parish, Ascension Parish, St. Tammany are top rated in numbers? And you ask yourself, Renata, why? They don't have charter schools. They have certified teachers. They're paying their teachers to pay. They don't have behavior problem. They have parent involvement. They have community activities to do for their children. So when we have districts like East Baton Rouge, St. John, St. James, and any other that are predominantly 85% black, you ask yourself, why would that matter? It matters because they rather put police officers in the classroom instead of putting what needed to be in place.
The teachers are not certified. The crime rate in the schools are very high. And East Baton Rouge is ranked as one of the lowest schools in the entire state. So no, you don't want your kid in that school. Second thing, crime rate in East Baton Rouge is steadily going up every year. Murder, drugs, and I'm talking serious violence, home invasions, it's steadily ticking up. Businesses are leaving East Baton Rouge at such a high rate because remember, I told you guys, in a high trust society, you have economic growth. In a low trust society, it's over. Nobody's coming to do business in your city. So there were a group of concerned citizens, and it wasn't just white people. It was Hispanic leaders and business owners in the community, the village of St. George. It was, the almost 40% blacks that live there. We want our own schools. We want our kids to do better. We don't want to continue to pay into a failing system. They want to make it about race because, see, the fact is that East Baton Rouge period, is a horrific city. It's falling apart. It's not ran correct. The taxes are being misused. People are not being represented properly.
Matt, how do you feel about this?
It's not racist. It's rational.
Is it based, in fact?
It's very based, and there's a movement. I don't know about Louisiana, but in Texas, there's a movement to create new free cities that split off from places like Austin. And it's simply about taxes. It's about regulations. It's about zoning. It's about schools. It's about all the things that normal people care about. And my guess is that the Baton Rouge city government is slightly better than Portland, Oregon, but maybe not good enough if you're paying the taxes. So why wouldn't you vote with your feet? And why wouldn't you start a community that is actually going to care about basics? Like, I want my trash picked up. I would love for my kids not to be transitioned in middle school. And I would love not to get shot.
Yeah. Baton Rouge Rouge is where there was a big BLM riot, and the case is still going on, where the police officer then sued the organizer for being like, you created a dangerous situation.
Wow.
There was a similar effort in Atlanta to create, I think it's called Buckhead. And as far as I know, it's been voted on a couple times. It's never gone through. But again, there was this criticism that it's like all the wealthy white residents want to split off. I think that's an oversimplification to scare people against the concept, right? If you're living in an area and you guys are doing pretty well, regardless of race, and you think, hey, this city is being mismanaged, I don't want to sell my house. My house is in the good part. Why don't we split off? That makes sense for me. I think that it's sort of arrogant of cities that are being poorly managed to say, well, like, you guys have to go down with our ship. You're not allowed to leave. Otherwise, we'll label you racist.
It's not race, it's governance. It's failure of governance. It's a failure to do the basic things that you expect a city government to do.
Yeah.
It's a Democrat city, folks. That's what it is. And ever since Katrina, the worst of the thugs from Katrina moved, if not Texas, well, then Baton Rouge. I've said this before, and I truly do mean it. I don't go to Baton Rouge almost ever, maybe 5 times a year. When I was growing up, we went to Baton Rouge several times a week. So safe, you guys. And it was 50-50, all right? 50% black, 50% white. Malls everywhere. It was such a great place to go. Sometime around the year 2000 to 2010, the whole demographic of the city changed. The trash out of New Orleans came to Baton Rouge. You started having turf wars, gang wars. The malls started shutting down. People get killed just driving down the street because in the middle of the day, because they get caught in drive-by shootings. This is why this city became its own thing. But why did I make this video? I made this video to tell you guys, if you're living in a blue city that is just failing, the schools are failing, crime's through the roof, businesses are leaving, and you've got an outlying area that's safe, and people keep trying to get their own schools, but they're told repeatedly, you're just racist.
Missed it. There is a secession battle brewing in Louisiana. Now, I'm not talking about the state, I'm talking about the school districts, specifically Baton Rouge. The Louisiana State Supreme Court just let a plan move forward that would let part of the East Baton Rouge school district secede to form their own new one. And all you have to do is look at the demographics to see that the new district they would create would be much wealthier, much wider than the one that they're in today.
The East Baton Rouge school system is about anywhere from 83 to 88% black. The new school district is going to be 46% white and 30% or 36% black. Wow. They went up a whole 30 percentage points, guys. Wow. That's why you got to be careful when you hear people make these kinds of videos. Here's the really interesting thing. Ever since they started their own city, look at the growth in this area of people moving in. Look at that graph. So it's, again, like I said, it's not a white city. They aren't banning ethnic people. They're not banning Hispanics. They're not banning blacks. They simply are starting a community, and I'm going to say this because it is true, that is ran by Republicans, and the Democrats can't stand
This
it.
is classic secession, and it happens more often than you think. Now, I want to be clear, this is a very hard topic to talk about because you're dealing with kids and parents who only want the best for their kids. And so, when they look at their broader school district that might not be the best in the world, they obviously feel like, oh, if they can go off and create this new school district for their kids to get a better education, then a lot of parents will fight tooth and nail for that to happen. But we have a lot of history and research on this, and the research shows that careful integration of schools can have the best policy outcomes for everybody involved.
Careful integration of schools. There it is. If you've ever looked at the history of East Baton Rouge, they've been fighting a desegregation case for like 40 years now, one of the longest ones ever in the United States, all because they want to bus children an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes one way from their home. So say you have a school half a mile from your house, your kid can't go there if it's too many whites or it's too many blacks. You have to bus your baby across the parish to 50-50 all the schools. Now, guys, I worked in East Baton Rouge. Some of the babies were being picked up at 5 a.m. and dropped off at the school at 7 a.m. to then be picked up at the school at 3 p.m., not to get home until 5 p.m. You make that make sense.
It helps the students that need to get helped, and it does not hurt the students who you don't want to hurt. We now have like decades of data, and they found that in the first few years of integration, high school graduation rates jumped by nearly 15 percentage points for the students that were integrated into better schools and reduced their likelihood of living in poverty for the rest of their lives. And most studies, not all, but most, have found that there were no negative effects on the predominantly white students that were getting integrated into.
So, they did this with special education too. Now, you guys know I have a degree in special ed, I have a degree in regular ed, I have a degree in ESL and early childhood. I remember when they started the No Child Left Behind and the least restrictive environment. It sounds great for the people who have children with disabilities or emotional disorders or behavior problems. Let me tell you what it does for the rest of the kids. Oof. Anything good become of that. So at this point, if you have kids that can't keep up, kids that won't keep up, parents that won't be responsible for their children, then maybe those kids should be removed so the rest can excel and become what they were meant to be. You need to create your own city. It took these people years. They fought it to the Louisiana Supreme Court, but they won in 2024. They won for their children and their grandchildren. Because otherwise, their only option was to sell their homes and get away from the community that they had built and that they loved. It's so much bigger, but I'm gonna continue to tell you guys, folks, do not lose heart. But here's the thing. To fight evil, you have to use the laws that are there for you. And unfortunately, the majority of us were not taught anything about city charters, about the way that government is ran. So you need to sit down in your city and you need to look at what they call the bylaws. And you need to study. If you want to start a new city, what is it going to take? Is it going to take a petition? That's probably where you're going to start. Then you're going to have to hire an attorney. So you got to start either a nonprofit or a group of people that are willing to row with you financially to afford those things. But the biggest thing you have to do is not let anybody stop you, because see, Satan wants you to continue living in a dangerous, horrific area. Folks, I'm telling you, I'm so proud of these people, the whole group of them, for fighting this out for 20-something years to get their own city. A city, I might add, that is literally bringing in more new businesses than they know what to do with.
To East Baton Rouge. Howdy, my name is Sean. I'm a realtor here in the greater Baton Rouge area. Keep up with the city so you don't have to. Name of this development is called the High Line. And this shopping center is going to be located in the St. George area. And the location is supposed to be at the corner of Airline and Highland. So my folks in Old Jefferson, Shenandoah, Santa Maria, the Country Club, y'all are going to have a good bit of fun. This looks like it's going to be huge. They're saying 7 restaurant spaces, 7 acres of green space, 60 office spaces, and 45 retail spaces.
Which means that people in this community, you're going to have more jobs available. You're going to have higher paying jobs. Those businesses are going to be paying in for taxes. So your school's going to be able to afford the best teachers, more trained police officers to control crime. This is why your tax base is so important. That's the truth of why Baton Rouge fought these people so bad, because St. George's Village paid like 50 to 60% of the tax base for Baton Rouge. That's what they're crying about. You got to keep the majority of the city, but the problem is the people with the good paying jobs, the people with the high property taxes, the people where the businesses were opening, they pulled away. So Baton Rouge doesn't get those taxes. That's why everybody's crying. They don't care about these people, or they would have done fixed the problem 25 years ago.